Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buttery Fresh episode 10. Double digits. Episode 10.
A 10. Number 10.
My name is Martin, a.k.a. Wookie. I'm joined as always by my co-host, Jeff, a.k.a. Splice.
What up, motherfuckers?
And Brendan, a.k.a. Evo the Saint, with a silent X.
Dab Fresh fam.
And our guest today is comedian Evan Berke. How you doing, Evan?
I'm great. Happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Good.
No, we're happy to have you here.
Yeah.
This was like the most last minute. I was literally sitting on the couch today watching TV, and we had scheduled you to be on you were going to come on last month.
About 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Oh,
and because you were leaving LA to come to Atlanta, you were like, dude, I can't do it. And I just got this message and you were like, yo, dude, when do you want to do it? I said, man, we can fucking do this shit tonight. And you were like, let's roll. And I was
Do it.
because we had like nothing planned for tonight. So
Well, it's one of those
coming in
too.
clutch.
It's one of those too. It's like, be careful what you wish for, you know? Like I could have just sent that being nice. Like, hey, remember we almost did it, and then you're like, no, put your money where your mouth is. We're doing it in 5 hours.
Oh
Yeah.
shit! I forgot. I'm washing my clothes.
Right.
At that time,
Yeah.
we'll have to reschedule, dude.
Sorry, I'm
I'm
stuck in my house at that time. I'm doing something. Yeah.
I don't know if you've been watching the news, but there's this thing called coronavirus going on, and we're all supposed to stay inside. I'm busy. I'm busy.
Right.
Speaking of which, might need to move these webcams around, like on the screen, so it's 6 feet apart at all times, social distancing via Discord video.
Social distance our stream, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm about to
tell
be malicious.
Yes.
Oh my God. So for those of you, I mean, I'm going to assume that most of the people watching maybe you've heard of Evan, maybe you haven't. I actually, God, what were you, like 15 when I met you? 16?
I was probably maybe 14. I started working at that place very, very young. I don't think the child labor laws probably wouldn't have allowed how much work I was doing at that place, to be quite honest.
So what you're saying is you lied about your age to get paid and hang out
Did you
with
even get paid?
girls
Did you
your
start?
age at this.
Oh,
Dude, that's big brain shit, bro.
I was getting paid and then using all my paychecks to buy WWE pay-per-views on DVDs. So it was really
A man of taste.
I wasn't really getting paid.
Well, I don't know if you know, but Florida just deemed the WWE as an essential business. So you can keep doing the pay-per-views as of like today. Like you're good.
I've been saying that for years that WWE is essential, but no one's listened to me. But today it became official. And we'll get to that later.
We'll touch on that
I love
later.
wrestling. I love WWE. So people were sending me that, and I responded to all of them. I've been saying this for years.
I would have been so much more rude about it. I would have just been like, I told you, you fucker.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? The NBA is afraid of a little coronavirus. Vince McMahon's like, oh yeah, you guys are afraid? Well, we're going to do WrestleMania during this. So, we're going to do we're moving forward with our Super Bowl. So
yeah. And by the way, we don't wear jerseys. We get half naked and touch each other.
It's my show.
So I have to ask, 'cause I don't know anything about wrestling outside of shitty memes, essentially, right? Are they going to do WrestleMania in like an actual arena with 50,000 people, or are they going to live stream it?
Well, they already did it. It was last Sunday. I believe it was last Sunday. And
spare parts, bud.
It was a combination of things. They did it at their performance center in Orlando, where the camera was heavily just focused on the ring and what was happening, in the ring. And then they did a few matches that didn't take place in a ring or an arena. We all know the old school 90s, early 2000s backstage brawls and stuff like that. They had a really good backstage brawl. And then they did a couple of new age cinematic type of matches that almost looked more like a movie or an action film. But a majority of the matches took place in their performance center in front of no audience. And it was weird. It was definitely weird.
Because I've been to actually some live events at well, it's now State Farm Arena, but it was Phillips Arena at the time. And then watched it on TV, and they really do rely on the crowd to like feed off their energy. So I could imagine it would be difficult for like, you know, The Rock, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, to like legit walk out there.
Actually, that's a correction.
Humanity. Yeah, Dwayne for president.
That's the thing is they
he just electrifies me.
They did have a couple of like comebacks this year. Like John Cena came back to wrestle for the first time in a few years. I don't know if you guys remember Edge.
Yep. Oh, my wife
came back, and
my wife loves that dude.
You know, came back and returned. And typically, those types of things rely on the crowd. But you know what? I think this is an interesting time. You know, like I'm a stand-up comedian. What we do often relies on, you know, the reaction from the audience.
Right.
Oh,
but, you
absolutely.
know, the past couple of weeks, I've done a few like Zoom and Skype shows. And I've just changed my delivery for this platform, for this medium. And, you know, and I was still able to get people laughing and have an impact. Now, granted, it's obviously very different. It's a different type of delivery. But, you know, I do think that, for example, me doing this or me doing that type of comedy show like this, when I am able to get back on stage, you know, I'm going to be better. My delivery is going to be better. And because you know, if I can change mediums, then, you know, and I think it's the same thing with wrestling. You know what I mean? Like if they can perform for no audience and no crowd and they can't rely on that pop, well, then when they do have the crowd and they do have the pop, you know what I mean? And at the same time, I don't know if you've watched wrestling recently, it's lost the crazy crowd. There's no more people with signs, with middle fingers, Austin 316. There's no more of that. It's the crowd is almost bored. They almost look bored, and every now and then they'll go crazy.
Watching golf, they're just sitting there.
But I am hoping that once we get back, you know, the crowd will actually, you know, be even more
blow
of a
back
factor than it once.
Dude, because it used to be like a fucking rock concert. Like you used to go there, and it used to be like people went insane. And I remember when I went, I like got free tickets. I wasn't really into it anymore. The last time I really watched it regularly was probably back when like Stone Cold and The Rock were kind of like at the pinnacle. And Edge, I think Edge was around then too. My wife's like really into like those tween books, like Twilight and stuff. So she loved Edge because she thought he looked like a vampire, kind of looked like a werewolf. Yeah. So she was like really into that dude. So of course I hated him because I was like, man, if she ever meets this guy, I'm fucking she's just gonna be like melt and be like, take me now. Can you bite me, please? It's
it's definitely changed. It used to be more like a rock concert and a party, and now it's like Disney on Ice. So we really need to get back. I mean, they've really gone PG with it. All this never give up, don't believe in yourself. Yeah, it's great. It's fun messaging. But I want a wrestler to come out there and just be like, I'm gonna stick this foot up your ass, and we're gonna have a good time with it. You know, like I want someone.
That's the American way, dude.
Yeah,
from the top rope.
Yeah. Like I want a wrestler to come out there and be like, I'm gonna whip my dick out and smack you in the face with it. And like I want to get that raunchy and weird and disgusting. You know,
I'm not an internet expert, but I believe there are websites that specialize in just that type of thing for you.
Like, you know, if I wanted to, you know, what's the word? Try and downplay the homoerotic nature of wrestling. I definitely didn't just do that, but I definitely had an opportunity
wrong with
there.
A couple of grown men just, you know, going to town like that. Just spray a little coconut oil.
some greased up beefcake. You know what I'm saying?
So you said something earlier that kind of stuck out to me. I don't know if you're familiar with the Two Bears, One Cave podcast with Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, but like pretty much since they've started. Since the quarantine really started in California to the point that it has, then they've been talking about how a lot as stand-up comedians, what it's going to be like going back to the stage as opposed to like doing it digitally. Where like for guys like that, where like they don't fucking need it. They could take a 6-month break off his tour, you know, and call it a day. But like do you think that it'll be completely different when you go back? Or do you think that like the crowds will still be the same way and that like like the delivery that you're working on now will transfer over the same way? Because like a lot of it is filling the room.
No, totally. And this is something that I thought about a lot. And, to preface what you were just saying, I've been doing stand-up comedy for about 10 years as what you would probably call like a part-timer. I started doing comedy as a freshman in college. So I spent my first 4 years doing comedy as a college student. I had a few jobs, but then I was like very much prioritizing this hobby of comedy. Then after that, I moved to New York, and I lived in New York for 4 or 5 years, where I had a full-time day job at a corporate crisis PR firm. And I was working a lot, but then I was doing comedy at night on the sides on the weekends. And then after that, I started working for the television show and website TMZ, which was a pretty demanding job. And that was full-time and doing comedy, at night on the side when I could. But for the past 8 months or so, I now have a job that's amazing. I work from home. It's the most supportive and the most amazing corporate culture I've ever been a part of. They support all of their employees' side hustles and stuff like that. And so I've really been aggressively pursuing comedy. I was in LA hitting the open mics every night. And in LA, you're not just hitting open mics at a bar or something. There are literal rooms in storefronts that people own, and it'll be called, like, for example, there's one called Bert's Back Room, right? There's another one called the Open Mic Spot. There's another one called, what is it called? Fourth Wall, right? And what these rooms are is you can sign up online beforehand every day, and from like 3 o'clock until 11 o'clock, every hour you can sign up, and it's like 8 comedians signing up each hour, doing 5 minutes, and then it's just a rotate, and it's like, it's not a restaurant. They don't serve food. They don't serve alcohol. They don't serve anything like that. So I was aggressively doing all of that. I also got to headline a show at the Charleston Comedy Festival in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I started doing comedy. And I kind of got to do like
it's so good.
Kind of got to do like a homecoming show, which was amazing. And then I also opened up for one of my good friends who I started doing comedy with in Charleston. His name is Dusty Slay. Super funny comedian. If you haven't heard of him, he's been on Tonight Show, Jimmy Kimmel, David Spade's show. I mean, the guy's everywhere. But we did Vegas at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club the weekend before Valentine's Day. We did a bunch of shows, and then we went to LA the weekend after, and we did the Ice House in Pasadena. We did the full weekend of Valentine's Day. So I was aggressively hitting the shows, hitting the mics, and I was kind of doing it from all perspectives, from like the 1 year in open micers doing these rooms where you sign up and you pay $5 just to get on stage, and maybe you sign up for 3 in a row. So that way you're doing 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But then, and you're paying $15 to do it. But then I also, on the flip side, was featuring at one of Vegas's best clubs with one of the best comedians on the scene today, and getting paid to feature. So I absolutely think comedy is about to change in a dramatic way. And I think anyone that's operating as if things are going to go back to normal needs to not, because
rethink your strategies.
Yeah, because the way that I see it, and I was living in LA, and I actually just moved out of Los Angeles. I was planning on moving out of LA right before the summer, and I was going to move back to the South. And one reason why I wanted to move out of LA, and even with all of this going on, is like, for an open micer or a guy like me, right? I'm not famous. I'm not a household name. I don't have a Netflix special. Don't have a late night credit. And when the clubs reopen, I'm not getting those first spots. Chris D'Elia is getting that spot. Whitney Cummings is getting that spot. Bill Burr is getting that spot. Russell Peters.
I fucking love Bill Burr.
Dane Cook, Nick Swartzen. I mean, all the people who actually have tours to prepare for are going to get those spots so that they can prepare for their tour. And a guy like me, is not going to get a shot at these legitimate clubs and rooms. And so totally.
Right, yet.
But I mean, here's the thing. I think at the end of this, when we're all able to go back to live performance in restaurants and shows, music is going to sound better. You know, if you used to shit on 311, you're going to have the greatest time at a 311 concert. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, food is going to taste better. If you used to hate, I love 311, by the way. You know,
yeah, like, I didn't realize I muted myself, but yeah, whoever's shitting on 311, they can.
No, but like if you're one of those people,
I don't like 311. So
no, and I'm also one of those guys. I constantly like things that most people shit on. Like I love the band OAR. I like professional wrestling. I love country
OAR
music.
Though. OAR is slightly underrated, I will say.
They totally are. But like, I love country music, and not only that, I love everything from Johnny Cash to Kenny Chesney. So I'm constantly made fun of for the things that I like because they're not like, you know, it's not Cardi B, right? So anything. That's
but like,
not
at least
Cardi
you're a comedian though, and you can like
Cardi
take
B
it. You know.
Well, I can take it, but what I'm saying is at the end of all this, whoever you are, all that stuff is going to be great. It's going to be amazing. Food's going to taste better. Comedy's going to be funnier and all that. But as it relates to pursuing comedy, you know, I'm lucky that I have a day job, and I've always prioritized my day job because having the money and the stability from my day job has always allowed me to invest in my comedy and just allow me to walk into an open mic or a show feeling relaxed. Not like, am I getting paid for this? Like they better effing pay me. Right. You know, I can just do it. But I do think there's going to be a lot of comedians who lost their day job as a waiter, a server, working in a gym, whatever, that are now probably going into debt. And then once the world reopens, will they have the money to continue to pursue the craft of comedy? I mean, guys like Bert Kreischer, they're going to be fine. They have some of the best management in the business. But guys like on my level who are just going to have to, once the world opens up again, they're going to have to work to get themselves out of debt and work to find another job. And it's going to be slower for, I think, guys like me. And it might, you know, there's a lot of people that do comedy. I'm sure if you listen to comedy podcasts, you'll hear, I mean, doing comedy is the easiest thing to attempt, really. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Right.
But it's the easiest
that makes sense.
to attempt. Anyone can show up to an open mic anywhere and get on stage if they want to. That's just the reality. And that hasn't necessarily been a good thing for comedy over the past 5 to 10 years. So maybe this is a way where it does kind of weed out the people that aren't as serious and don't have that foundation to actually kind of pursue this thing. But you know, I'm back in the South, and my ultimate goal is to move to Nashville and to pursue comedy out of Nashville. Because I did New York for 5 years. I did LA for 2 years. I had some amazing jobs in the entertainment industry. You know, but when you're in those cities, you're constantly fighting for club spots at the same clubs in the same city. And what I want to do is I want to be on the road. I want to go from Memphis to Chattanooga, to Birmingham, to Mobile, to Atlanta, to Charleston, to Savannah, to Jacksonville.
Fort Worth?
In Dallas-Fort Worth. There it is. I want to be doing New Year's Eve in Little Rock. You know what I mean? And it's
damn straight, brother.
And I do think that at the end of this, you know, I'm excited to be in a position to hopefully take comedy to these places that are going to need it and, you know, help businesses get back on their feet by providing comedy shows. And, you know, versus me, you know, in comedy, it's these two different things. Go to New York or LA and tap dance for the industry, or be a road comic and build your own brand, sell your merch, live out of your trunk and just try and kind of do it that way. And
grind.
And right now I'm more drawn towards the, you know, I want to do it my way. I've seen the way that this whole thing works, and you know, from a, what's the word I'm looking for? From a very shallow perspective, like I've been on TV quite a few times. And a lot of comedians, that's just what they want. They're just like, I got to be on TV. Everyone needs to see that I did this thing, you know,
Right.
So like that very shallow, superficial itch, or, you know, weight that I had on my shoulders has really been lifted. And now I don't feel like I've got to prove anything to anyone or tap dance. Now it's all about, all right, I got nothing left to prove. The only thing I've got to prove now is to myself that I have what it takes to bet on myself versus thinking I need to rely on the fact that everyone goes to Hollywood or everyone goes to New York and it just happens. Like, I don't want to rely on that. I want to rely on, no, I'm just that good that I can kind of do it from anywhere. And I don't think I'm there yet. Like, I think I'm solid. I think I can make people laugh really anywhere, but I want to start prioritizing doing it this way versus getting stuck into doing it that way.
Do you think that the paradigm is going to shift into the more like road comic standpoint? Because if you feel like the way you said, I didn't really consider it that, you know, when, you know, clubs start opening back up and, you know,
keep in mind, stand-up comedy clubs are notoriously broke. That is why every time you go to a comedy club, there's a 2-drink minimum because ticket sales go to the performer, and clubs make all that money off of chicken tenders and $9 Bud Light.
Right. I'm more thinking about like, you know, your classic places, like again, like the Boston Comedy Club, like that place isn't going anywhere. The Laugh Factory in Chicago, or oh God, what's the place in Los Angeles? There's
the Comedy
Cellar
Store,
or the store, yeah.
The Comedy Cellar is in New York.
Yeah, and then you've got like the Ice House is kind of notorious, but like the place probably isn't going to go anywhere.
They're opening it back up, dude.
Yeah,
but with those places essentially being, you know, kind of powered by the guys who are going to have to start gearing up for the road, you know, the guys who are making production companies like millions of dollars. Do you think that the paradigm will kind of shift more towards road comics? Because I'm a big comedy fan. I don't do comedy, but I listen to a lot of comedians and like follow their podcasts and like that. The one thing that I've heard is that like doing the road is awesome. Doing, you know, your arena tours, that's awesome. But like if you're on a cruise ship, right. You know, so
well, that's kind of, yeah, like I think that a lot of comics give too much power to New York and to LA and to the idea of it. It's definitely a place where you can go. And if you move to New York at age 35, let's say, to do stand-up, you can give your whole life to it. You can sacrifice everything and you can prioritize it over everything. Versus if you stay in your hometown and you're 35 and you're surrounded by friends and family, they make it harder for you to justify being out on Sunday night doing an open mic and not with your family. They make it harder to justify that. And it's the same thing in LA. You go there to grind, and no matter what age you are, there's no discrimination. You're here for the grind. You're here to put in the work and to be around it. And then there's all this opportunity above it, like TV shows and writing gigs and appearances and opportunities and stuff like that. And I think that's why a lot of people go to those cities, is because there's a camaraderie with that, where if you might feel misunderstood being in a place where comedy's not a huge deal, but you make it a big deal. Like Charlotte, North Carolina, let's say, has quite a few comics there, I'm sure. But it's not like what everyone is even sleeping, and breathing.
Yeah, people aren't like, dude, I got to go to Charlotte so I can be a comic.
Right, exactly. And to be quite honest with you, like, I want to move to Nashville to be a comic, and I'm sure there's not a lot of people saying, I'm going to move to Nashville to be a comedian. Now, I know
they're moving there to be musicians.
But I know a lot of people in Nashville that do comedy, and they have really successful careers as road comics, either headlining or opening for some of the big names who we all know and love. But I think it's all about, but there's an inner struggle that I think comedians have with one another or with themselves, which is like, how much do I believe in myself? Can I make it? Or do I need to go to a place and make it?
Because well, I mean, I feel like you could do both, though. I mean, like, have you ever done anything? I know you mentioned earlier, it might have been before we actually went live, but you were doing some online stuff, like streaming it online. Now, do you record any of your shows that you've done live or that you're doing live online and then putting it on Spotify or anything like that?
So I have been in the process, actually this past year, I've been in the process of working on the material that I want to record.
Cool.
For an album, basically. And
well,
right now
when I was in a music project, use this software called DistroKid.
Yeah.
I want to say it was free, and that's how we uploaded everything that we did in the project to all these different sources.
I think it's like $20 a year.
That's something.
Great.
I mean, it's something like
basically
stupid,
free,
dude. Like,
yeah.
I mean, but yeah, use DistroKid when you're ready. But I think a Spotify presence would be really helpful. I mean, the digital age, man. Like, I don't like watching comedy as much as I do, but like not nearly as much as I like listening to it on the road. And so if you have it on like Spotify and shit, I mean, that's how I went through all of Tasha's and Dane Cook's stuff back in the day on my little iPod Classic, was just listening to it in the car, you know?
Yeah, it's a good time killer on the road for sure.
It really is. Like, more so than music.
Even on my road trip back, I listened to Steve Martin's, one of Steve Martin's early albums. I listened to Rodney Dangerfield. But no, I mean, I've actually, you know, it's interesting because I'm 28. I'm about to be 29 in a couple months, and I started doing comedy at 18. And I've always loved getting on stage and just telling stories and making people laugh. But I've gone through this thing like every 2.5 to 3 years where I've realized I'm not the person I was when I started telling the jokes anymore. Because like for the first 4 years, I was like a college comedian talking about like the walk of shame, talking about being in a Jewish fraternity only for the free t-shirt. You know what I mean? And it's like, but then you get to a point where you're like, well, that's not really me anymore. And maybe I can incorporate that, but like, I can't build a set around that anymore because now I'm 24.
Right.
And the walk of shame from Karen at accounting's department. Oh, it's not the same.
And so only recently, now that I'm, you know, within this past year, have I felt like I've stumbled upon my material that I think is more like I finally have found my voice, kind of thing. Like,
okay, yeah, that
like
makes
I've
sense.
been doing I've been doing comedy this whole time, and I've been making people laugh, and I've done what I've had to do that night. You know what I mean? Like I'm like a pitcher. You know what I mean? Like I might not throw, it might not be the best, you know, throw every time, but I'm going to do what I got to do to try and get the ball over the plate.
Yeah.
Every pitch.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. I like that.
Yeah, and so I was really excited before all this, and I still am. But the thing that's been great about this kind of hiatus that we've had to take from the stage is that I've been doing these open mic rooms with my fellow comedians. And instead of just doing an open mic night where everyone like laughs at your stuff or they don't, and then everyone's like, all right, bye. In these Zoom open mic rooms, we are all listening to each other. And then after each person goes, everyone is offering tags.
Oh shit, that's really smart.
So literally it's like I'm doing my story and then someone will be like, yo, what if you at this part did this? And now I'm walking away from these Zoom open mics with like 5 or 6 new tags to each joke because finally comedians are being supportive of one another.
Right,
and
they're
collaborating,
like,
you know what I mean?
Right.
And so
that's really cool. Actually, I would have never thought that would ever be a thing.
Well, no,
you might even want to look in. There might be some Discord servers you can jump into, or have you looked at Reddit? I mean, for any kind of constructive criticism, I'm sure people pass that along pretty often on either one of both of those platforms.
Yeah, and so like right now, I've got a really great 20-minute video from when I did the Ice House featuring for Dusty. It's probably the best video I've ever done. It's 20 minutes, start to finish, kind of me just murdering. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Is that on YouTube?
And so it's unlisted right now because, you know, as a comedian, you only kind of get one shot at that first impact, you know? So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm more than happy to send it to you guys after this. And honestly, if anyone ever messages me saying, send me your video, I'll send it. I just don't like to kind of put it out there.
Yeah, that's the smart move. Smart move, honestly. It's just like with clothing companies or
anything making a brand.
Any branding, anything. Yeah. The first thing needs to just smack the dick in the world, dude.
I actually have a video right now.
The dick, you mean?
That's the one.
I've got a video right now that I'm holding on my phone, and I had it edited so that it even looks like one of those online stand-up comedian videos that you would see on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
On top, the subtitles. And I love this bit. It's 5 minutes long, and it's about the time that I got into a horrible car accident. Basically, I had my hand mangled, but I try and, you know, really relate to people and like make them realize, like, no matter what happens, no matter how crappy it is, like, you can turn something into comedy. And it's 5 minutes long, this video. But I know that bit is actually like a 10 to 15 minute bit. So do I put the video out just to get people laughing and engaged, or do I really hold on to that? And when I'm ready to put out the whole thing, or when I feel like the whole thing has been fully, so these are things that I struggle with.
Balancing act. Yeah, it's a balancing act
that I struggle with, and it's like I still haven't put it out, and it's probably a really great video that would do really well. But again, you only get one shot at that first hit, and so I might be, but it's one of those things where, shit, if I get corona and I got to go to the hospital and y'all don't know if you're going to see me again, I'm going to post that video. You know what I mean? Like, that's all the videos out there. For that moment when I'm like, shit, I might not be able to touch my phone.
You're going to be like, fuck, man. I told those dudes on the Buttery Fresh I had that shit. I got to do it now. I got to send it out. Everybody knows.
For that Hail Mary, but no, I do think the landscape of comedy is going to change. I think the big guys are going to be fine. But I do think guys like me, I think you've got to start taking control of your careers. I mean, I think for all of us with all of this that's going on.
Yeah, like no matter what you do.
If this ever happens again, I mean, I know a lot of people that busted their ass for a company for years. And then even as all of this started happening, they continued to put themselves at risk and bust their ass for that company, only for that company to fire them.
Right.
So on the other side of this,
I relate to that 100%.
How much control do you want to have over what's going on with you? And so that you can't, and so I personally would love to see every comedian have, and I'm not saying comedians that are in New York or LA don't have the courage to just say, I have a career and I can hit the road. It's different strokes for different folks. Like, I don't see myself as an actor. If I saw myself as a comedic actor and like more of an actor, then I would probably stay in LA and do the auditions and stuff like that. But I think if really what you're passionate about is stand-up comedy and performing for audiences, I personally think you kind of have to get on the road. I think there's only so much you can do performing for
in one place.
Yeah, because it's like the cruise ship analogy. New York and LA become cruise ships. It's the same rooms. It's kind of the same crowds. And like, are you actually getting fans?
Right. Well,
right. Because most of those people. Go ahead.
Just when you're on the road, like, America is so culturally different from state to state. I mean, there's no state that's alike with another state. They're all extremely just different. And so if you're just staying in one place, are you really mastering your craft to cater to those people and those cultures? Or are people just sucking your dick in LA and then that's it? Just
because you're doing LA comedy. Like, right. You were talking about the cruise ship. I owe that guy a
favor. I'm just going to go and fucking, share this on Facebook or some stupid shit, On
a cruise ship, like, yeah, you have different people coming on and off the ship constantly, but it's generally, like you're saying, it's the same type of people.
Absolutely.
Because there's when you go on a cruise, especially if you're running a cruise ship that goes to like Alaska and back, like, you're going to get generally an older crowd. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be the same kind of clientele.
We're going to go look at the glaciers.
Yeah. That's it, I mean, so I get it, man. I think that we had a musician on last week and he was kind of talking about the road versus just playing the local shows too. And it's the same thing. He's like, you get in these rooms where there's like 10 people. And you've got to just do what you do. You got to throw the best fucking pitch you can to try to get it over the plate. And then it's like you get to a room somewhere else and then there's, 1,200 people or 100 people or whatever. And it's always different. And dude, I respect the shit out of that, man. That's a great way to look at it. I really I respect your outlook on, that kind of way of grinding, I guess.
I just want to be able to relate to people, you know what I mean? And it's like, oftentimes you'll be in New York and you'll be in LA and And I think, I mean, there's merit to doing comedy in all of these different ways. And you can become a great comic that crushes in Little Rock, Arkansas by only working your shit out in New York or only working your shit out in LA. Like, that's totally possible. But I do think you need to really understand like the human condition and the American condition and everything about it, you know, because there is a lot of comedy where, like in New York, for example, a lot of jokes about the subway, right? And sometimes I'll hear a comedian in New York and they'll be great and they'll do really well, but then I'll think to myself, if I was booking the Charleston Comedy Festival, would I book this person? I mean, they did just Murder in New York, but none of
we
their
don't have a subway.
But no, yeah, we don't have a subway, and they didn't make it relatable to people that don't have subways. Like
Absolutely.
There is ways to do that, and then it's also like, would they? Plus, their attitude, they're kind of they might have kind of like an elitist comedic attitude where they think they know better versus a comedian
because
they're
like in New York,
a comedian that's like y'all get it and y'all get it versus me being like, you guys just don't get it. You know what I mean? And so, so I think there's merit to both, but I mean, I just know what I like to do. And, you know, at the end of the day, I've kind of proven a lot of things to myself that I kind of needed to prove, which is, you know, I did the Comedy Store, the original room at the Comedy Store multiple times. And I crushed it. I mean, so hard. And it was incredible. It was like of my top 5 sets of all time, I would say the top 4 are like the sets I've done at the Comedy Store, like the 4 sets I've done there. Yeah. And that's all I needed to prove to myself. LA digs my shit. The Comedy Store digs my shit. Cool.
Done.
I did Vegas. They dig my shit. Cool. I
did Charleston, done Atlanta.
They dig my shit. Cool. Done New York. They dig my shit. Cool. Now it's
Lexington,
time for
Kentucky.
You're right. You know what I mean? But now it's time for me to take that information and not say, well, I got to write it out here. I got to write it out here. You know, now it's time for me to continue to cross even more cities off that list. And I just think that if comedians really want to build a following, there's like 2 ways to do it. Become a great social media comedian where you are creating hilarious sketches and hilarious TikToks.
That's a big thing right now.
Yeah,
the little short YouTube videos,
especially right now, dude.
Or you've got to hit the road. But if you're just going to be a comedian in LA or New York, you got to have something else, another reason keeping you there. Whether it's, you know, you are a comedic actor doing auditions, you are trying to do a lot more acting,
right?
You know, but again, it's different strokes for different folks. There are some people that want to do comedy and they want to be in a different city every night. And there are some people that want to do comedy and they want to be at the Comedy Cellar every night. And neither way is wrong, you know, and there's merit to both. You just got to define. I always tell my friends in comedy when I see them succeeding, but they're always bitching, saying that they aren't. I always remind them, you need to define what success means for you. What does success mean to you? Does success for you mean making enough money off of comedy? Does success mean not making enough money off of comedy, but you have the respect of all of your peers in comedy? Does success for you mean just doing comedy in New York where the greats have done it? Does success for, you know what I mean? And for me, success in comedy is I'm turning this thing into a small business. I'm able to monetize it in a way that makes sense for me to where I'm not constantly spending all my money to do comedy, and that I'm providing a unique environment for people. And I mean, the cool thing about doing a lot of comedy in the South, there's a lot of people who I think would say that, you know, Evan Berke was their first comedy show. And I love being able to have that.
You broke their virginity, dude.
With people. I mean, I was in college and I was doing comedy shows. So many of those people were like, I've never once, you know, been to a comedy show. And I'm like, good. This is a great first show to come to, you know?
Right.
And,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's what success in comedy is for me. It's able to monetize it, but it's also just able to make people laugh and to do it in a way that just feels meaningful versus me just trying to make it and being
giving a shtick and going on to the next one.
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah. I just want to, and I want to. Yeah, again, like I said, that superficial, kind of shallow, like get on TV, show everyone.
Well, I think
that's been silenced, luckily.
I was gonna say, I think that I don't know if it's just the way that like social media has evolved, or I think that is a part of it. But I think that any type of entertainment now, a lot of like the success that you see a lot of it is about connecting with people, because now social media makes it so easy to connect with your fans without having to like be face to face with them all the time. So you see a lot of people that, you can really, really like a comic or an actor or a musician or whatever. And then you can follow their Instagram, you can follow their Twitter, you can see what they're doing in their day-to-day lives, and you're really connecting with them. So I don't really think, like you said, I don't think there's a place for that superficial bullshit anymore, because people now want to connect with these celebrities or whoever that they're fans of, because if Cardi B is posting all her shit all day and she's all the way up on the tip top of, the music game right now, for better or for worse, then, why should you, Evan Berke, not be connecting with these people? Like, that's just the mentality that they have. So if you're a superficial asshole, they're just going to be like, fuck this guy. Like, I'm not, like, why should I waste my time, trying to be a fan of this dude?
Well, I think it's all going more towards the direct to consumer route. Love him or hate him. I mean, Louis C.K. still put out a special last week, and I haven't watched it. I haven't bought it, but I know a bunch of people that paid the $5 just because they're curious. I know a bunch of people that paid the $5 because they, genuinely
exactly what
think he's one of the greatest. And I mean, and it's one of those things where I think especially as it relates to comedy, the direct to consumer route is going to go a long way. Again, you want to talk about comedy clubs, whether or not they're able to open. I mean, all the clubs that we talked about earlier, they're institutions and they are beloved clubs by millionaires. The people who love those clubs are combined worth billions of dollars. The Punchline in Atlanta, beloved by a bunch of comedians, but how will they survive after this? Or you've got clubs in Charlotte like the Comedy Zone, or you've got the
the mom and pops,
just all these basically little clubs, the side splitters, the loony bins.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like, after this, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be on the comedian to say, I'm doing a show in a parking lot and I'm charging $10 to get in and come, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've also, I mean, to be honest, I've taken almost the direct to consumer route with my career. I mean, again, I've done all the things I've mentioned, there's things there. I've never had management or representation or anything for any of the jobs on TV I've had, for any of the comedy gigs that I've gotten. I've gone the direct to consumer route this whole time. I mean, I did the Charleston Comedy Festival earlier this year, and of all the people that played the venue that I played, I'm probably the only one of those people that doesn't have a manager or an agent. But I played the same.
When you say you don't have a manager, are you looking for a manager?
I knew it was coming. I fucking knew it.
Here's the thing.
See, I'm 30, unemployed, living in a desert. Okay, and so far I've acquired several jobs from just solely being on this podcast on the Buttery Fresh. Yeah, it's brought many buttery fruits to my labor. Okay, if you catch my drift there, good buddy. And I'm a part of OWL. Okay, I'm in Truett's band. I'm vice president CEO of My Vape Bar Incorporated LLC.
There's his resume is expanding, just like
it's expanded drastically because of the Buttery Fresh. Now I do have space on my day-to-day task management, I could probably manage for you. And normally what people do, they say, yes, you can do it. And then that's it. So unless you want to be like different, which no one wants to be different, dude, you could say no, but you kind of have to say yes because of the implication.
Yeah, no, yes. So let's talk after this.
Guys, that's all. I'm in.
I manage.
What's up? You got a manager, bro. Let's go.
Oh my god.
So I'm curious. You're like over the course of, and again, like I'm a huge comedy fan. So for me, like I can kind of see through the ages. Like, you know, back in the day when you had like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like that, you know, it was an all club scene, you know, or you would go on and you would do like big movies. You know, there wasn't really much of like a B-list gaming comedy. You were either like the guy or you were, you know, bussing tables.
Yep.
And then, you know, the 90s and the early 2000s came around and you had like, you did clubs and then like you got put on a sitcom, you know? And then now it's more like, oh, here's everything that I'm doing on the internet, because it's the easiest way to get to, you know, everybody and anywhere at the same time. How much value do you see in like putting more out there rather than getting it to the right people?
Yeah. So I
don't know if that makes sense the way that I'm saying. I kind of thought it out as I was saying.
I've always said when I put out a video, I don't care how many views I have. I just want to make sure that every view that is on there counts. Like it's a person that counts. I'm probably the wrong person to answer this, because I see the value in social media comedians and their ability to produce content at a really rapid rate and put it out and get the followers. And, you know, a lot of times it's very silly stuff. It can be very wacky. But, you know, it's a way to continue to put stuff out and engage people. I do think that is ultimately what gets you managed and what gets you representation. But I don't work that way. I prefer to be a slow burn. You know, I almost see myself as a sitcom dad, but I'm only 28.
Word.
So I've still got about 12
okay, hold on.
years.
I got to back you up. And now I need to know which sitcom dad you identify as.
Tim Allen.
Fucking right,
yes,
dude.
Yes.
Cool man, dude. Cool man. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, should I put out a bunch of stuff right now because that's what everyone else is doing? And should I try and figure out the algorithm and figure out the hashtag?
That's what Tim would do.
Tim would also smuggle like 70 pounds of cocaine. Just like putting that one out.
You know? Or it's like, do I just continue to do what feels right for me, play the game that I'm playing? Because here's the thing, right? The more stuff you put out on social media and the more that you build your own brand, I mean, there's pros and cons to that, and there's risks and there's rewards to that. But at the same time, it's like, I've always seen myself as someone who's a bit more like plug and play.
Yeah.
Like TMZ, you need me to plug in and play? I can plug in and I can play. Or someone like Bleacher Report, like you guys might need someone that can plug and play. And I don't necessarily, for me, and I think it's also because I've always had like pretty demanding day jobs where I worked for companies that were very established in their industry and very respected in their industry. So there was a certain level of etiquette that I had to have, and I couldn't put out just whatever I wanted on social media because then I would get fired. I've always seen myself as someone who I don't want to already have like such a defined brand where if a brand came along and needed like an ambassador or a spokesperson or almost like a blank slate from a public standpoint, you know, I could be the Sprint guy. I could be Flo from Progressive.
Okay,
you don't already know me from scaring people in the park. You know what I mean? Like I'm just this guy that's been doing stand up, and you know, I know that I look a certain, you know, straight man. You know what I mean? Like just I can deliver. You know, I can tell you what this product does, and I can
business,
and I can read you the news, and I can just, you know, I can be serious like that. And I've never wanted to jeopardize any of the opportunities that might come in that space.
You know, it's funny. Me and Brendan were talking about this earlier. I watched the new Vin Diesel movie, Bloodshot, with my son last night. And the first thing that Brendan says when I told him that, he goes, well, that looked pretty campy. And I was like, it wasn't really campy, but it was just Vin Diesel being Vin Diesel. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. Like because he was Dominic Toretto, which I know that wasn't his first role, but that was his most famous role. He is kind of like now the only things that anybody offers him are the tough guy. I never knocked on nobody. Like that's all he fucking gets, dude. He just yells and beats people up.
He's in the same group as like Jason Statham, you know.
Oh
it's
yeah,
like those two guys.
Jason's
It's just that's the character, man.
Actually, Will Ferrell. I feel like Will Ferrell.
Yeah,
plays
Will
the
Ferrell's
same character in every movie. Also,
Absolutely.
But to your point, but at least Will Ferrell's allowed to be funny, you know. Like Vin Diesel just has to. You know, when you get, like you're right.
Serious,
stern, buff white dude.
Smoldering looks all the time. There's always like he's working out at some point in like every fucking movie.
Right.
Oh,
and so I do think there are ways to get more in the short term and potentially the long term by putting out all this stuff on social media. But again, I'm more of like an old soul, I think, when it comes to this, where like, I grew up on the guys in the 90s, so I'm still like holding on to the idea that that's how it works. Like a company or a brand sees you and is like, I can, like, you would be a great host for this. Like, that's what I love to do. I would love to host something. You know what I mean? Like, and I think I'd be a solid host on many different types of television shows. And that's why I'm not trying to be an actor. Because if anything, I think I'm more of like the host comedian type. But even now, it's like, if only I had a social media like Hailey Bieber, maybe I'd get the opportunity, you know, to host the Sing Off or the, Lip Sing, right? So even now, those hosting jobs that would normally go to like a Steve Harvey, just like a great comedian, are going to like, you know, models. And that's tough.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, it's easy. Just be a model, bro. Like, no, man.
You know, and it's like, and again,
that's
good for them.
Get back in your fucking bikini and let's roll.
I'm all about the best person getting the job more than anything. You know what I mean? But it is showing more and more that already having a social media presence does help you. But then how many of those shows actually last? You know what I mean? Like I think there is merit to saying, I'm not ready to be seen by the world yet. Like I'm still marinating and I'm not the best that I can be yet. I'm the best I've ever been today, but I'm not the best that I can be yet.
Right.
So
like that.
Why jump the gun and I've always just played with that in my head. Like I said, like I do think that, especially with a lot of comedians, like I've always been driven by this idea of aging like a fine wine. Versus kind of getting seen too early or getting known for something too early or trying to do something too early and just, you know, kind of not being ready. So it's like, I just know that I've put myself in a position where I can get funnier and I can get better every day. So I'm okay holding out. You know what I mean?
No, I think that's smart. I think that, especially now in sort of like the digital age where it's really easy to live stream something or to record a video and put it on YouTube or do a TikTok or whatever. Like, I mean, you walk around with the technology to do all of that shit in your pocket all the time. You know, I remember, cause like all of us used to stream video games on Twitch, and that's like how we all kind of met. We were all doing that. And like, I remember starting and it was like so fucking difficult for me just to like get everything set up and working properly. And I had to like buy this equipment or whatever. And now like these fuckers just like go on their phone and click go live. And they're like, what's up, bitches? And they just fucking, you know, do whatever they want to do. And I think that causes that rush because everybody sees, you know, they'll see some, I guess like a comedian or whatever that does like some little sketch and they throw it up on YouTube and they're like, I could do that shit. Next thing you know, they pull out iPhone and then they start fucking talking into the phone and they upload it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that I think the fact that we are just overwhelmed with that much content at all times, and it's so easy to make it yourself. There is that instinct, like people instinctively want to just be like, fuck it, let's go. And, you know, that's like a huge, it's just a very respectable mindset to be like, I'm not ready to just like sploosh all over everything right now. Like I gotta wait a bit, you know? And, no, it's kind of refreshing to hear that actually.
The big thing about all of it too is like celebrity today means something entirely different than it did when we were growing up. Like Evan, you and I are closer in age than you know the rest of us than I am with Jeff, for instance.
Wow.
Fuck you.
I'm 25, you're 28, Brendan's 30, 31 or something like that, and Jeff's just
or something like that. Shut the fuck up, Martin. Shut the fuck up.
The mindset, baby.
Bro, I know. No, I mean, I know. I get it. Okay, I'm fucking 36. I've got 2 fucking kids.
What?
But you know what? But you know what?
God, yikes,
I just like Evan here thought I'd be a good host. So here the fuck we are. So what the fuck is that? What has everybody else done?
I had a point. And that is that like celebrity today is entirely different than it was before. Like you look at,
right,
like,
because now there's the influencers. Like they're not really
not
like
even that, but like just media outlets in general are completely different. Like you look at like CNN, Fox, NBC. Them combined don't have the same like reach as somebody like the Joe Rogan Experience, for instance. Like JRE, that is the arguably, and I'm probably wrong, and there's no way for me to verify this. Like that's arguably one of the biggest like platforms to get your message out right now, you know? And so sure, he may be the fear factor guy, but if you factor in like somebody who's got 1 million subscribers on YouTube, like that's a celebrity nowadays, you know, like these people are making fucking money doing it, you know? And whether you're like uploading a video of you with your tech deck to, you know, 500 million people, or if you're like, you know, just grinding out with comedy skits and you're posting, you know, like little 90-second clips. It's like, I mean, you look at some of these people, I don't go on TikTok, so I don't know how that works, but you look at like Instagram, you've got people who are getting like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of likes on their posts. And now like these people are now getting paid to sell like, I don't know, whatever products. You're like, you know, your exercise ball, or you're like, totally FDA approved boner pills, or like whatever it may be, you know, like, whereas before kind of to what you were saying is like, you would be like, oh, I'm Shaq and I'm the spokesperson for Icy Hot, you know, like that's in my opinion, kind of by the wayside. So I don't know, there's so many different approaches to it. And like, that's something that we struggle with on, you know, on a day-to-day basis, is getting that name out there to more people and kind of establishing your brand and making sure that like the first person that somebody hears is the right thing. Because, you know, if I'm scrolling through Instagram, for instance, and I see a comedy skit, like that guy's got like 7 seconds to get my attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And I think that's even being generous.
But it's so easy to just go to the next video. You know what I mean? Like if you're at a club and you're watching it live, like you're not going to be like, fuck this dude after 7 seconds. But on a video, it's like, and you move on. But today's generation, the people that are spending the time on YouTube and they're spending the time on Instagram, like, I mean, my son is a perfect example. My son's 12 years old. He doesn't know the fuck Joe Rogan is, but I guarantee you he knows who fucking Spunkmaster69, Flexmaster, whatever's Fortnite videos are on fucking YouTube.
Jesus Christ.
Like, you know what I mean? Like he talks, yeah, that's trademarked, by the way, right here. Raddest in the land. You heard it first. But he talks about YouTubers all the time, and he's like, oh yeah, this YouTuber I watch, his name is blah, 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 numbers, letters, hashtags. I don't fucking know. He knows all about that shit. You know, like, and that's just this generation. That is how they consume their content now.
When I told you about that video earlier that I'm like holding on to that I might post, and that's why like I'm putting so much time and thought into the material there, and then I'm putting so much time and thought into making that video. That, you know, one of the reasons why I don't post it is because it might just get ignored. You know, and you know, we're talking. You know, and y'all are helping me realize some stuff about myself. Like, one thing that I kind of really just realized in this moment is that, I mean, the thing that I love most about comedy is live shows and live events.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, y'all kind of just opened up to my eyes that at the end of the day, the thing that I love most about comedy and that keeps me coming back to it is this idea of actually bringing a bunch of people into a room together.
Community.
To all have community,
community.
To all have a great time, to see something authentic and real, to create a memory. And then, you know, if there's one thing that I want to be known for in comedy, it's that every time I came to your town and you came out to my show, you had a blast.
Yeah.
So I don't even, so it's funny, like, I'm just not one of these guys that even thinks really about putting out social media videos, because as much as I like to make people laugh, as much as I want to make people laugh,
you want to see it though. Like, you want to see them laugh.
I want to make you laugh. Like, I'm not,
the reciprocation is what makes it so, is what makes you love it so much. And it's, you know, that's just kind of how it is with anything.
Like, you're putting stuff out on a phone. You don't necessarily know how it's hitting people or how it's connecting.
Right.
I mean, and that was one of the reasons when the three of us got together and, you know, we started talking about, you know, doing this podcast. That was one of the first things we said is, well, we want to stream it live. So, by the way, if you're listening every night, Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern, twitch.tv/thebutterrefresh, you can check us out live.
Because everything's better with butter.
So, but there is a connection, and I know, you know, we don't necessarily talk to everybody verbally, vocally, audibly, whatever, the same way we would if we were streaming like video games and all that stuff. But there's still an interaction there. There's still that live interaction. People are, you know, typing in questions and stuff on a regular basis. And I don't know that me personally, like, just sitting down and just like basically having a phone call with, like, you know, these four people would have the same sort of effect as actually doing it live while we're recording it. And then releasing that as just this live uncut, you know, we edit the audio for quality, but we don't cut anything out of it at all. And I know that there's podcasts out there that cut and they're like, oh God, this guy sneezed or he coughed or he said this or he said that. We're just going to snip that part out because we don't want anybody to hear that and get a bad image. I don't give a fuck what people like, what the image is. Like, we're trying to connect with people just like you're saying. And so this is live,
just trying to get a laugh, man,
and uncut. And, you know, that's what makes it fun for us.
Yeah, and there's something visceral about
but
doing it. But you can do
that. Like, somebody. You can still do it live like this and do it digitally.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, even these Skype and these Zoom mics that I've done, those have been a ton of fun, actually. And I've gotten a lot of great joy out of those. And I'd prefer to do that and to do something like this than sit in my room and try and make a hilarious 12-second video. I just, you know what I mean? It's just, I need to be, I kind of want to be talking to you. I want to be, it's more than comedy to me is more than comedy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, and again, I just love the event and the theatrics and the spectacle of putting a show together and picking the venue and making sure you've got sexy, you know, lighting and making sure you've got good house music as people come in, and then making sure from top to bottom, the lineup kind of serves the purpose, making sure that people in the audience feel like they're there to have a great time and, you know, be supportive of the comedians, but also they're going to walk away with a memory and they're going to walk away with like a good opinion on comedy shows. You know, not all comedy shows are great, you know, especially if you go support your friends. But, you know, like they, you know, and so for me, it's then providing the comedians with a great opportunity to perform, because as comedians know, not every show you do is great, you know? So for me, it's more than just for me, it's more than just laughs. It's about what's behind the laughs. And it's about, you know, all the things that lead up to it. You know what I mean? And, you know, so I do a lot of producing and stuff. And that's really where, you know, I love it. And then as a performer, I'm definitely more of like a storyteller, but honestly, my comedy career would probably be doing a lot better if I would just suck it up and figure out how to make some fucking, you know, TikTok.
Well,
you know what I mean?
but like, you know, you don't want it to feel forced either, because like if it's not something that you naturally are like, fuck yeah, this is so badass, like I want to make these TikToks. You know what I mean? Like, because like I don't know, maybe people that do TikTok feel like that every morning.
I'm not judging. For me, it's hard to wrap my mind around.
Right? Like, I don't know. Maybe these fucking professional TikTokers, they wake up every morning and they're just like, I cannot wait to make all the 30-second videos today. Like maybe they're motivated as hell to do that. But if you force it, it's not going to have the same, you know, it's not going to have the same sort of impact. Just like, you know, I feel like a lot of times when comedians come on podcasts, their kind of goal is I got to try to force a joke. Like, and I have to try to be as funny as possible so that when people hear this, they're going to want to go watch my shit. You came on here and you were like, this is how it is, motherfuckers. This is as real. This is how I feel about it. Like you didn't use it as an opportunity to try to like basically do a stand-up routine. And like, I respect the shit out of that, because like that to me, just like telling the real story, and what it actually means to you. Like that's shit. That's way more meaningful. And that, in my opinion, that's going to get me to want to go check somebody's shit out after hearing them than some dude that just came on here and just tried to be, you know, as funny as possible and force a bunch of jokes the whole time. So you got to do what's real for you, you know? So I wouldn't fucking suck it up.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to fucking do it, don't fucking do it.
Yeah. It's just a process coming to understand, you know, like I said,
yeah, absolutely.
And like I tell all comedians and artists, like define success for yourself. What does success mean and look like to you? Not, you know, you want to be a comedian and this is what you've been told a successful comedian is. No, like you can, there's ways to, you know, like there's ways to make these things work for yourself. Like if you want to be a musician, like, do you want to be in your own band or do you just want to play guitar for Jason Aldean? Either is fine. But do it
your own way.
Success looks like for yourself.
Right.
Go for that and let that be your guide versus, you know, feeling like, oh, if I'm not writing my own music and recording it and doing my own band, then I'm a failure in music. It's like, no, you know what, define for some people that is what they have to do. And that's what they're driven by. Again, it's like, you know, like even in comedy, like, yeah, like I had to get to a point at one point where I just had to say, I don't, maybe when I was younger, I kind of, and maybe in my early days of comedy, I'm like, ooh, movie star. We'll be doing movies and TV. And maybe at some point we do a little acting. Maybe at some point we write a movie, we make a movie, we act in a movie and it's on our terms and it's great and it's whatnot. But I've kind of gotten to this point now where I'm like, no, what I like to do is I like to do stand-up comedy. I like to produce stand-up comedy shows and I like to host things on TV and stand-up comedy shows. That's what I like to do. I'm not going to let anyone tell me that I have to go be Jerry Seinfeld or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no, I appreciate your input, but I've got my own plan. It's not to be the next Jerry Seinfeld.
I dig it.
Right.
Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap it up here. I know you said you kind of had a time limit tonight, so I don't want to.
Yeah, we can go a little bit. I got a little bit longer, but no, I mean, whatever.
We can go ahead and do our outro and let you get to where you need to get to, man.
I think I want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody about your socials, blast your shit out there, tell everybody what you've got in store for the future. If there's any projects you're working on, if you're writing, you talked about you were writing something for like an album or whatever. But yeah, tell us kind of what's going on for the future. What's going, you know, the Evan Berke camp.
Yeah.
What's cooking?
I appreciate it. Well, you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at Evan Berke, Berke.
Oh, and, I totally spelled that shit wrong in the thing.
You done fucked up.
I've got a website. I own my own domain. and that's Evan Berke, BERKE.com. And you can go to my website, and on there I've got a bunch of videos from when I was on TMZ, when I interviewed a bunch of celebrities. I've also got a short film that I made on there. Got a bunch of stand-up clips from back in the day when I first started out in college until recently. And, you know, in the meantime, I might be doing some online comedy shows, so check those out. But once we all get back up and running and we're able to be in the same room or even the same parking lot, I plan on, you know, just really doing DIY and doing the direct to consumer. And I plan on taking control and making sure that from top to bottom, great comedy shows are produced, you know, all over the Southeast, but also all over the country. That's really my goal, is just know that if you're coming to see a show that Evan Berke is on or producing, everyone on the show is going to be great, and it's going to be a great show, and you won't regret spending your money with us that night. So
it's gonna be worth every penny of that $9 Bud Light.
and once it all gets done and we're all good, I am going to be prepping to record, you know, my first hour of comedy, putting it on record and hopefully getting it out there to Spotify and XM Radio and all that. But I'm really close to having that hour's worth of material. So once I can get a bunch of people in a room to provide that laugh track, we're after 10 years, well, almost 11 years now, it'll be 11 years this September. We're going to be putting out our first album, and I think it's happening right on time.
Hell yeah, man. That's beautiful. Good. I love it.
Good.
Well, thank you, dude. Thank you so much for being here, man. I know with everything going on and how crazy all the shit is, it's difficult for anybody, regardless. I know we joked in the beginning where we're like, oh, I'm just sitting around at home or whatever. But I know in these times, man, everybody's doing stuff with family, and it's difficult to make time to do things like this. So thanks, dude. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on with us tonight.
Dude, thank you guys, and keep doing what you're doing. And hey, keep getting comedians on here. You know, comedians are fascinating people.
Link me. Yeah, send us that Rolodex. We'll get them on here all fucking day.
Yeah,
we're always looking for guest spots. Absolutely. So awesome. We'll hook up, and you can get me some people on here that you know, you think would enjoy it and that would have a good time.
Well, when I get my home improvement TV show, when you know, in 12 to 14 years, y'all are going to be my first stop on the press junket. So
there you go.
Yes,
so
I can dig it. I dig it.
Y'all better still be here.
You heard that shit here first.
Let's go.
Right on,
I love it.
Thank you.
Well, great, man.
Thank you so much.
To everybody listening, once again, that was Evan Berke. You can check him out at www.evanberke. That is spelled with an .com. BERKE. .com. His Instagram at Evan Berke. But thank you guys for listening. Make sure that if you enjoy the content to go ahead and follow, subscribe, leave a review, comment on the videos, comment on the episodes. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to connect with you guys. You can join the Discord, but we are everywhere that you want to listen to podcasts: Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, and we stream on Twitch every Tuesday night.
You say it so shamefully.
We may stream on Twitch.
But anyway, thank you guys all, and we love you. Evo?
So I was going down to the store the other day, and then